Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at what the pattern could look like heading into November and then throughout the month of November. It is looking quite cold, I will tell you that. Now, before I get started with this video though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you do like weather-related content, and also make sure to share this video with your friends, family, and social media. Now, I would also highly recommend that you go check out our Patreon page. I actually just made a post this morning about our analogs for the month of November, talking about precipitation, temperatures, all sorts of things, very in-depth, and that's the kind of content you can get from becoming a patron, so I highly recommend you check that out. Now, for today's comment of the day, I want to know, how do you think this November is going to go? So let me know what your area is and how you expected it to go for your area. Alright, now let's get into this video, and we're just going to be taking a look at one-day increments real quickly, just taking a look at what October is going to close out like. This is for the 23rd, throughout the day on the 23rd, through the night and into the 24th. And as you can see, we have some really warm temperatures set over the eastern United States and even in through the southwestern United States as well, with colder air making its way through the Pacific Northwest, through the northern Rockies, and into the plains. It's going to be quite chilly there. We've been seeing some snowfall. We've talked about this for a few days now. Now, let's go ahead and move on towards the 27th through the 28th, and as you can see, we just kind of build on that same pattern, but it gets even more potent there with the cold air. Even temperatures that are 20 to, in those purples, that's about 30 degrees below average, so extremely far below average. But on the last day, Halloween, the last day of October, we see those colder temperatures move into the eastern United States, and we see a warmer temperature pattern move into the western United States. On that note, we see a pattern flip right there. What we're going to do is we're going to move on, and then we're going to start to take a look at the 5-day increments for the month of November. So I think it was important to show those days in October because it kind of shows us where that pattern flip happens and gives us kind of an idea of what we're going to be experiencing in the month of November. Now, the first 5-day increment is going to be for, Halloween through the 5th of November. And as you can see, really generally colder in that eastern half of the United States, especially for New England and the Northeast. I'd be curious to see if we have any storm systems coming through. Could see some snow with those temperatures being that far below normal. Out in the west, we see some more neutral temperatures. So what we're going to do on this note is just go ahead and move on and take a look at our next 5-day increment. And we actually, again, just like we built on that first pattern in October, we're building on this pattern as we see more warm move into the west, and it's still just generally cold in the east. This is a classic positive PNA pattern. We see warmer out west there, and then we see colder in the eastern half of the United States. Very classic pattern. We saw this at points during September, at points during October, and potentially now going to see it at points during November. You might be wondering, could this be a sign of things to come for the wintertime? And I would argue yes, that we could be in a similar pattern to this, where we see some warm times and some cold times, both for the west and the east, both at opposite times, obviously, but I think it's going to go back and forth, and generally everybody's probably going to be pretty satisfied after this upcoming winter is said and done. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to move on, and in a second, we're going to take a look at the 10th through the 15th of November, so we're going to get towards the middle portion of November. Alright, and as you can see here, for the 10th through the 15th of November, we do start to see some colder temperatures move in for that southwestern portion of the country, as well as the northwestern portion, but we're still seeing a bit of cold for the eastern half, I would say, of the United States. This is a pretty confused pattern, and usually we don't see both of these at once, so it's going to be kind of a toss-up of if we see cold in the west or cold in the east. I don't think we will see both like this is depicting, so it's going to be very, very interesting to move forward and just see what happens with this pattern. It's basically a toss-up, like I said, at this point. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the 15th through the 20th, and as you can see, it's a lot of the same. We see colder temperatures there throughout Washington, even down through California as well, and into the Four Corner states and the plains. All of those regions, again, still the eastern United States is dealing with some cold air there according to this model, but again, it just really doesn't make sense for both the coasts and the central to be cold and then some warm scattered in. This isn't really a pattern that you would typically see, and I don't know how much I'm buying this. There is some warm showing up there for Florida and then also the upper Midwest as well. So again, I don't really know how much I'm buying this. The models do tend to do weird things this far out, so take it with a grain of salt, but we could see a pattern that looks similar to this, just not exactly like this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on and we're going to take a look at the 20th through the 25th where the pattern becomes a lot more definitive. And we're also going to take a look at that final 5-day period of November as well. Then we're going to look at the entirety of the November forecast from this model. Even going to take a look at the December and the January forecast according to this model. Very, very cool stuff coming up. All right, now first things first, here's that very definitive pattern. As you can see, cold in the west, warm in the east. I like to see this because at least I know that this is a pattern that we see very frequently, and it makes a lot of sense. Warm in the east, cold in the west. Usually we see one or the other, and sure enough, here it is. So this is something we can definitely work with and say this model does have a grip on what it's trying to show. A lot of you might not be happy with it because I know, probably 75% of my viewers live in the eastern third of the country, but a lot of you out west are probably glad about this because I know from time to time you've been dealing with some cold. Probably after this next cold wave is all said and done, you're not going to be looking forward to the cold anymore. But really, this is just a brief moment in November in the grand scheme of things. I think everybody's going to get their fair share of cold and warmth throughout November. And really, I do think that this month of November, if it does shape up like this, would be a lot closer to normal for most regions. There is probably going to be a definitive colder and warmer area. But I do think that it is going to be a little bit marginalized because of the fact that we have these flips going on. But I think everybody's going to be quite satisfied, both cold and warm lovers at certain points. So it's kind of a win-win here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the 24th through the 29th. I meant to do the 25th through the 30th, but whatever. It's going to be pretty close. We're going to take a look at the entirety of November at the end, so it'll be pretty clear. This isn't going to be too much different than the 25th through the 30th, so you're pretty much seeing the same thing either way. So as you can see, that cold does shift further east here at this point, especially for the central United States. It was in the very western United States, but we do see a lot of that cold for the west coast get pretty normalized, I guess you could say. We do see some warm making its way in there, and a lot of that warmth for the east coast is turning into colder temperatures. So there is a shift here that we are seeing. Could this lead to a beginning portion of December being colder? For sure. I do think that is quite possible. This is far out, so there is going to be some inaccuracies here, including that little portion of the East Coast could be different. But if this was, assuming this was going to play out exactly this way, that's what I think could possibly happen. All right, now what we're going to do here is we're going to move on and we're going to take a look at full 1 month increments. Again, as a bonus, we're going to go over December and January as well, but most importantly, we're going to take a look at the entirety of November. So first things first, here we are taking a look at November, and as you can see, according to our CFS model, which is the model we were just using for 5-day increments, we will see generally a colder central United States and then a colder northeastern United States, especially a little bit of a southeast ridge there for Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. That is a very minimal southeast ridge though. That is one of the most suppressed ridges I've seen there. Very close to the coast. Obviously, that's not exactly how it'll play out most likely, but still very interesting to see it just along the coast. I bet there's some warmer sea surface temperatures right there, and that's what that model's picking up on. And out for the western United States as a whole, it's very close to normal. Again, we're going to see the flip-flopping pattern, and that usually leads to this very sprinkled in just blue and yellow randomly. It's very close to normal. We see that from time to time in a pattern such as the one we're heading into. Now for December, we see a kind of a winter thaw. There wasn't even a winter freeze yet, but here's the winter thaw. We see a warm December according to this model right now, pretty much for the entire United States. But rest assured, here's January and much better news here. Like I've been saying, if you've been keeping up with the winter thoughts video, the winter forecast videos, I've been saying this, there will likely be a warm month or two in the winter, but I don't expect it to be solid like 3 months of warmth, no snow like we've seen last winter and for some regions the winter before that. I do expect that there will be some colder times, and that's going to allow for snowier times as well. There's a lot of positive things to look at this upcoming winter. Even if it's warmer than normal for your area, it still is going to most likely, almost certainly be better than last winter, especially if you're in the East Coast region where we had a historically snowless winter. I can't emphasize that enough. People don't understand how snowless last winter was. There are some cities like Philadelphia, Boston, New York, especially right there in that corridor where there was practically no snow, historically low amounts, and the odds of that happening again are extremely low. Extremely low at this point, especially since everything has switched. Our El Nino, La Nina has completely flipped to a different situation. The PDO, which is our North Pacific, has completely flipped. The Atlantic is looking different. So the odds of something similar to last winter in general is very odd. If it was a warmer winter, it's going to be a different type of warmer winter. I hope that makes sense. The storm tracks are going to be completely different. The way the troughs come in is going to be completely different. The winter is going to be completely different. So I hope that gives you hope. A lot of people are kind of discouraged going forward, but I really think that there is a lot of good to look at. Now, quickly, here's our analogs. Again, if you become a patron today, I highly recommend you do so. By the way, it's extremely cheap, cheaper than a Starbucks coffee. So, I do try to bring very high quality content there. So I highly recommend you check it out. And you only have to subscribe for 1 month. You can cancel right after that. So basically, your investment is practically nothing. And this morning, we made a post about my analogs, all of my winter analogs, and we took a look at what they were calling for that November of those winters. So the November right before all of the winters. And here's a little sneak peek of it. Here's our temperature outlook here. And as you can see, it's pretty much the exact opposite of what this model is calling for, and also what I'm thinking. This is the opposite of what I'm thinking too. So the interesting thing here is if this is to play out like this, so if the November, this upcoming November is to play out like the CFS model called for and what I'm thinking, and in turn is the opposite of what I'm showing you right here, I'm going to definitely need to switch up these analogs a little bit. I'm going to need to find the ones that are really leading it to be this way, and I'm going to need to probably get rid of those because a lot of what November is like is going to translate into the wintertime. So if we see a November that does not look anything like my analogs, likely we will see a winter that doesn't look anything like my analog. So that's crucial. But this is just a sneak peek. In that Patreon post, we're going to be going over the temperature, precipitation, and geopotential height and giving a really in-depth post about that. Anyway, for today's comment of the day, I asked you guys, when do you expect your area to see its first snowfall? And Alan Machinsky, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, said, we had over 10 inches in the Apple Valley, Minnesota today. Snow fell from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m., Tuesday, October 20th, 2020. Heavy snow, high water content, and that's very cool that you had your first snowfall literally when I asked that question, so that's why I picked that one, and because we've been talking about this snowstorm for such a long time. But from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. to see 10 inches of snow in that time frame is actually a ton. That is a ton of snow, and I'm sure it was extremely heavy like you're saying. Anyway, for today's patron highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our diamond patrons, where we're actually introducing a new diamond patron here. It's Jay. Obviously on screen your name is pronounced It's JXY, but I'm gonna just call it It's Jay because I'm assuming that's what your name actually is. Anyway, for the rest of our diamond patrons, Alicia Davis, Madbird, Cindy Klein, Dan Hazard, and Mark J, alongside our platinum patrons Donna Carnes and Larry LePan. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for supporting the channel, all of you patrons. If you would like to end up on the patron end screen, you can do so by, again, checking out that very exciting Patreon where we bring awesome content, and you could end up on this end screen here. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, be sure to share it with your friends, family, and social media. I will see you guys in the next video.